What is life? Hi, everyone. I'm Thomas, and I hope you're having a beautiful day so far. Welcome to my channel. And I do mostly educational videos on all kinds of different subjects, focused here mostly on Tree of Life, which is this diagram here that you've seen if you've watched any of my videos. And the Tree of Life is an ancient diagram that came through ancient Egypt, and the ancient Hebrews had it, and then it filtered up into Europe, and many of the traditions of the, I guess, 19th and 20th century have used Tree of Life in Europe too, esoteric traditions. I got mine from by way from ancient Egypt, by way of the West Indies, by way of Ra over at Osero Set Society and his books Medu Neter. That's probably the primary influence of my understanding of the tree, along with understanding a lot of sacred geometry, numbers, numerology, mathematics, and also the reciprocal system of theory, and that all and history, and those things will all come together to form kind of my model of the Tree of Life. I have great, profound, admiration and inspiration and debt that I owe to all of those other people that came before me. And I'm just trying to pass it along to the future. Okay, so here we have the model, the Tree of Life. It's got 10 different spheres, which are really circles, or 10 different circles, which are really spheres, that are numbered 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. There is a thing here called the abyss, and then there is a 0 that is above the tree. So there are a total of 12 different categories, which really, for me, map out to 12 different faculties of consciousness. Starting at the bottom, again, the Tree of Life really comes from the top. This is where the creator of the universe is. The creator of the universe creates in this direction, that creates life down here, and then we evolve back in this direction. So that is kind of how it works. And so from our perspective, we're starting here and going this way, but from a real perspective, the universe starts here and goes this way. It creates in this direction and evolves in this direction. So the 10th sphere has to do with our wild animal consciousness, our reptilian brain, and our survival instinct, fight or flight instinct, also the general health of the body. The body kind of knows how to keep itself healthy, and that's an instinct that we have as well. And we'll be talking about that today. Then the ninth sphere here is really kind of like mammalian brain and our domestic consciousness is what I call it. And this is our consciousness as we're growing up in the first few years of our lives, maybe our first 5+ years, where we're highly receptive and we are basically soaking up our whole environment and watching how everything works and interacts and operates. And in particular, we're soaking up our influences from our parents, our caregivers, and other people in our home, which is where we spend almost all our time. And we more or less are receptive to them. We memorize what they do, and then we imitate what they do. And that way, these things get passed, their habits get passed on to us as habits. And so this is also where, habits are are formed. Then the A-sphere is kind of similar to that in that the A-sphere, but the A-sphere is where the night sphere is our domestic sphere in the house. The A-sphere is the public sphere out in the real world, when we go to school or when we go to church, or when we participate in public affairs. We listen to the experts, the establishment and the institutions, and they tell us what we're supposed to believe, how things really are, what our expectations, what their expectations are for us, what we're supposed to be doing, and to the extent that we kind of obey that, we find that we can get ourselves into the A-sphere, which is a big deal because the A-sphere is pretty much where all the resources are located. So this is really where the material resources are concentrated, and this is where the establishment is, and they peddle certain belief systems to us. And if we follow the instructions properly, we can move into the A-sphere. The seventh sphere is for people who have moved into the A-sphere, at least, for a cup of coffee, at least long enough to see what it's all about. And they notice that there are major problems with the A-sphere. The belief systems don't always add up. What they tell us is not always based on logic and reason, which is what it claims to be, but a lot of times is based on like circular reasoning and other kinds of faulty reasoning, and rationalizations. And we at the seventh sphere, we kind of decide that we're not going to get into the rationalizations. We're not going to try to bend over backwards to justify what's going on here in the A-sphere. So, whereas the A-sphere is the real world, the seventh sphere is like the imaginary world. So we may be in the A-sphere and we're disgruntled with it, and so we imagine a better way. We imagine a way that the A-sphere could be, that would be, more logical, or that would be, more harmonious. And so we move over to the seventh sphere, and we're able to take advantage of the faculties of the seventh sphere, which include imagination, but also intuition and inspiration, and also pleasure principle, what is pleasing, and harmonious. And we use those and our creative spark, our ability to create, to make things that didn't exist before. And we use these things to create alternatives for the A-sphere, usually in the form of art pieces, paintings or pictures, or songs or poems or prose, and also inventions, other machines that would improve upon machines and other intellectual property that would improve upon the A-sphere if adopted, or at least attempt to improve upon the A-sphere. The seventh sphere also gives us a wedge to move up the tree in the form of inspiration. A lot of the things that we might be inspired by are up here in this area of the tree, and so we strive for that. We pattern our lives upon that, and we move up in that direction. And this is kind of what we get at the top of the seventh sphere, which is number 48, which I've already done, which is pointing to a mission. So we kind of declare our mission in life here, our spiritual mission in life, and then move toward it. And that inspiration of our mission is just the 1%. And then the 99% that we need is, I guess, genius is up this hill to start with. and that's perspiration, 99% perspiration. So the sixth sphere here at the top of the pyramid is, this is really where we're located, and this is our free will faculty. The free will being the ability to pay attention and to make decisions. Unfortunately, normally, before any type of spiritual development, we're paying attention, but we're paying attention to the lower part of the tree. Our habits, our conditionings, our likes and dislikes, our survival, these are all things that we are paying attention to. And we do so especially because it's comfortable. We're comfortable with these places because we grew up with them. We are very familiar with this way of thinking and way of living. So this is what we pay attention to. But with our free will, our ability to make decisions, we take that, we use our first decision, our first spiritual decision is to take our attention and spin it around. Because attention is a vector, it's a direction, it's an arrow. You point your attention at something, and so our attention is generally pointed here. But with our spiritual evolution, we need to move our attention around and point it in the direction of spiritual evolution, on our spiritual path toward our higher aspects. And that's a daunting task because in general, these areas are not well developed by us or really by the whole society. And so we find ourselves kind of staring into the unknown. And that requires a good deal of courage to be able to kind of sustain that. And that's what we develop as we move up further. So as we move up from 6, and we put our attention on 5 and 4, we move into the ability of actually like sustaining that staring into the unknown, which we do. We all kind of have a glimpse of this in our lives. An example would be like public speaking. Most of us, in high school or something like that, at one point we had to go up there and give a speech in front of a bunch of people, or we had to be able to give a recital or something, some kind of performance that we had to do in front of people, where you could practice all you wanted, but ultimately you were in real time. Like, the stage came open and you had to do something, and you'd never really been in that spot before, and it scared the crap out of you, and you wanted to quit. You wanted to jump off the stage or run into the audience, but you just kind of had to do it. And probably didn't go that well. You probably made some mistakes that you normally wouldn't make. You slurred your words, or you said like for every other word, or for every other word, but still at the end of it, you were still glad you did it, because it actually was exhilarating, and it was also it showed you that even though you were scared, you could still do it. Because it's fairly commonplace, especially in the A sphere, to think that just because you're scared of something, it means that you can't do it. You're paralyzed by fear. And so when you actually do act on the 6th sphere, it teaches you that you are not paralyzed by fear, that you can still do it. It doesn't mean that you want to do it, but you realize that you can do it. And gradually, as you move up into 5 and 4, you realize that you should do it, and you realize that you need to do it, and you need to do it often, to the point where it's like that's your constant state, is that you're always out there in a vulnerable situation, staring into the unknown, because that's where all the action is. This is just this is really just a simulation. This is where real life occurs. And so that's where we are here as we move our attention up the tree. So the fifth and the fourth sphere really work together as part of the law. This is really like the enforcement of the law. That could be, you could call it karma. What comes around goes around. As you sow, so shall you reap. And you could think of it, a mirror being put right here, where you act and you get feedback. And karma is really what its criteria are violence, waste, and violation. So, if you're acting in a wasteful manner, you will get that feedback. The feedback you get back to you will be something that is a waste of you, more or less. And if you're able to be receptive to that feedback, then you can tweak your behavior so that you're not creating so much karma when you act. So that's kind of how karma works as the enforcement of the law. The law is articulated here at the fourth sphere, the natural law, not the police or the judge or the legislature, which are all located here, but the natural law, how law all really works, that we only can tune into through observation and other things like it, such as investigation and experimentation and experience. So we discover, we decree the real law, the fake law here at the eighth sphere, and we observe the real natural law. And also here is located in the fourth sphere is other universal qualities, such as universal love, our ability to love our enemies and to give, seeking nothing in return, and also universal language, languages that are innate within us that resonate with everyone, which include, smiling and other body language, nonverbal communications, music, many other different forms, telepathy, different forms of communication that we grasp without having to be taught. Okay, then the abyss here is a representation of our psychic powers, our faculty of psychic powers. This has two aspects: our ability to recognize omens or synchronicities in our lives, coincidences. Those are language that reveal to us important things that we need to pay attention to in our lives. And then the other part, which is called the psychic heat, is related to being able to act upon those omens. So there's the ability to recognize them and then the ability to act upon them. One requires more of a receptivity, the first one, and the second one requires more of courage or heat. Okay, then the 3, 2, and 1 are really our divine aspects. Omnipotence, all-powerful, that we tap into through sound synchronization, including mantra. And then all-powerful, all-knowing, omniscience, or wisdom, our ability to solve all problems. And the solution to the problems is an out-of-the-box solution. And so we need to be able to kind of ignore our thinking process here and to be able to actually tune into the silence in our mind and pay attention to the object of our meditation. And then if we are able to kind of avoid getting drawn into our verbal thinking, then we can glimpse those outside the box solutions. And then the first sphere above the tree, or the first sphere at the top of the tree, is omnipresence, all present, all at once. And this is the unifying factor. This is like the 19th century physicist's ether that underlies everything, this medium that underlies everything. And by underlying everything, it connects everything, because we tap into this by penetrating all the way through our subconscious. If you think of the mind as a sphere, our conscious mind is on the surface, and then our subconscious mind is in the middle there. But then when we get all the way to the center, the absolute center point, that's where we're talking about here, our deepest center. And that is kind of like a mirror also. And so we are able to, if we're able to calm our mind down, particularly our conscious and subconscious mind, kind of like a body of water. If the body of water is absolutely still, then you can see through it. And that's the same way that the mind works. If you're able to calm your mind down to not even a ripple, then it becomes transparent and you can see through it. So you're able to get into this by having an absolute quiet mind. And this is how you are unified with everything else, because everything else has this same creative spark within it. Okay, then the zero above the tree is just is the part of the creator that we don't have access to. So you could think of it as the creator's private life, and this is something that we only can indirectly perceive, and that we may attempt to make that indirect perception by thinking of it as kind of like the rules of the game. The rules of the game were there before we got there. And so, it's kind of like, this is how the universe is structured. An example of that, and a lot of both the first sphere and the zero sphere have to do with geometry and numbers. An example of that, even though this is more of a kind of a first sphere example, would be like, say you have a bunch of pennies. If you can, you put one penny down, and then you put a bunch of other pennies around that first penny, you will discover that you can fit exactly 6 pennies around that one penny. No more, no less. Not 5.5 or 7, but exactly 6. And so that's a structure of the universe that you have to deal with. No matter how, omnipotent you become, it doesn't matter. It's still only, it's still exactly 6 balls or 6, circles fit around one of the same size. And that's just how the universe works. Those are the rules. And so that's implicit. You can take it or leave it. But if you leave it, it's to your detriment, because you're going against the universe. If you try to do something else, and it won't work. So at the zero sphere, you're recognizing that your inner peace is really based on being in harmony with recognizing what the laws are and acquiescing. Okay, so now as far as my model goes, I go to another level of definition by taking the whole tree and all of those 12 faculties and superimposing them on each one of the 12 faculties. So, for example, if you got the fourth sphere here, I can boil down the whole tree shrink it down and place it on the force sphere. So I boiled down the fourth sphere to its 12 faculties, and I boiled down the seventh sphere to its 12 faculties, and so on. So therefore, I end up with 144 different fractal faculties, and I refer to those as stages in life. But those stages are not chronological stages, they're dramatic stages. So it's really like 144 different dramas that we have to negotiate on the stage. And if you would like me to send you a list of those, I'd be happy to for free. Just click the link in the description and I'll rush that out to you. Now, of those 144 fractal faculties, I've been covering a different one each day for the last couple months. And today, we're actually going to be looking at number one. And that question was, what is life? And it's called Perpendicular Universes. Stage number one is about life and how it works. In our universe of motion, there are really two dual verses, the material and the cosmic, one in space and in time, respectively. These two dual verses are out of phase by 90 degrees. They interpenetrate. They each have inside regions that are in time and space, respectively. And they pass through each other, since the relationship between time and space is motion. They are each inside each other. Tajitu in the Taoist. You know, that is the, where there's a white side and a black side, and they're united by a curved line, and then there's a dot, a white dot inside the black spot section, and a black dot inside the white section. I probably should have brought out a graphic of that, but maybe next time. Cosmic or control units convert or bring material molecules to life. Life is a stable intersection of material and cosmic units, one-to-one, but across the interregional ratio or the rotational ratio, which is the reduction that occurs when we measure into a region of time instead of space. We cannot see time, we can only see space. So if we measure something in time, we have to translate it back into space. But much gets lost in the translation, which can be calculated. So we need to multiply what we see by that ratio to get a true answer of how many units there are. So cosmic atoms lose almost everything in the translation. The factor is greater than 2 billion to 1. So to overcome the reduction of effect of the rotational ratio, about 2 billion material atoms are needed to balance for one cosmic atom from the cosmic sector. So when we see one cosmic atom, there are really over 2 billion of them that need to be balanced by 2 billion material atoms. So DNA, the most complex material molecule, barely qualifies to make a life unit. Life units differ from inanimate structures in that they have length in clock time. The simplest life unit is the compound neutron, which is a combination of a proton and an antineutrino. The compound neutron lives for 11 minutes or so. This is subatomic life. Cosmic atoms are the electrical structure of the life unit. Since time is in rotation or angle or curvature, measured by I, J, and K, the electrical current is a rotational unit of space. Spinning apparatus, that is the cosmic unit, is attached to and animates the material unit, which are the magnetic rotations, by way of lowering the magnetic shields. The magnetic unit is in the universe of space, but it is in time too, as it is inside one unit of space, called the time region. The electrical current lowers the magnetic shields, just like the Earth's Van Allen belts, like a torus for protection. Implicit in life is its sense of preservation, seen best in the state of nature or the jungle, where survival is always at stake. Inherent in life is the survival motive. Under stress, it decides whether to fight or fly. Life also naturally tries to build up to higher and higher complexities, from a cell to an organism to an animal and beyond, all the way to the logos. Okay, there is number one. What is life? And as you may have guessed, number one is the 10th fractal of the 10th sphere here at the bottom of the tree. And, you know, it's probably, you know, when you think about number one, you're kind of thinking about how these things, you know, it starts out easy and it gets harder. And then by the time you get up to the top, it's very, very complex. But the 10th sphere is pretty complex too. So, you know, we're more comfortable dealing with spheres 9, 8, and 7, and even 6. But there's a little bit of rough going in the 10th sphere because you have to establish a lot of things. And so that number one there is kind of a doozy, but congratulate yourself for hanging in there, making it through the video, and congratulate me by clicking the like button. You can also share the video and subscribe to the channel. And I have a Venmo and a Cash App address in there in the description if you'd like to donate to further